I am Janice B Gordon, co-president of the Professional Speaking Association PSA Southeast, along with Richard Hagen. Now, I'm also visiting a fellow of Cranfield School of Management, consulting and training sales teams in key account management and social selling. Now, as a professional speaker, I talk about scaling your sales. Today, I'm up close and personal with Richard Hagen. Hello, Richard.
Hello, Janice. Thanks very much for having me on today.
Now, let me first introduce Richard, because he's really a fascinating guy. I've worked with him for over a year now, and actually researching him, I've learned so much more, which is incredible. And I'm sure there's lots more that's going to come out in this discussion. So Richard was a former priest, and he says after committing suicide at Edinburgh Festival, running after elephants in Kruger National Park, or running away from, not after them, facing down drug dealers in their Y-fronts in Perth, really interesting guy, being mugged by an Orthodox priest at the site of the crucifixion, and surviving a few years as a year 6 teacher in Souff London. I can't do this. How do you do? Souff London. Yeah. So any complaints, write straight to Richard, please. So he is perfectly equipped to run Immersive Publishing. Since 2009, co-founder Richard and Martin Pentecost have lent their varied experience to the writing of over 20 books, anything from fiction to business, fiction to business and therapy. And also they have authored or helped to produce audios and online training programs, which are really popular these days. So very, very relevant. Working with experienced expert coaches, trainers and business owners to help them turn their expertise into books and online training products. His latest book, co-authored with Martin, is The Heist: Cracking the Marketing Code through authoring a book. He's also currently working on his next book, Write Your Book, Grow Your Business, What Business Owners Need to Know Before Starting to Write a Book. Immersive Publishing strapline is don't just write a book, write the book that will story sell your business and attract your ideal clients. So welcome, Richard.
Right. Thank you, Janice. I wish I could remember all of that myself from day to day, what it's supposed to be about, but yeah.
Well, let's help you remember a little bit more, Richard. Can you tell us, what was the one thing from your early life that has always impacted or you've always taken with you?
I think it comes down to one moment when I was about 12 years old, and I won't go into the details, but family drama and crisis. And I remember a huge drama going on. And I remember standing in my paisley pattern pajamas out in the hallway, and just in floods of tears because everything was in chaos and didn't know what was happening. And I just remember standing, and all I could articulate was, I don't want anyone to ever feel like this. I want to help people. And I don't know how I articulated it, but that moment has just stayed with me, whatever I'm doing, the same kind of feeling and drive to prevent people feeling like that and help them flourish. That moment just sticks in my head.
Oh, that's really interesting. So you're like me, a bit of a problem solver, really, taking away the world's stresses and strains and challenges.
I only want to change the world. Nothing more than that.
But words are so powerful, so meaningful. Gandhi says, what's your thoughts, and it all comes down to, your thoughts, your behaviors, from your thoughts, words, behaviors and actions, and your destiny. So words are really, really important. It's the way we communicate with one another, which is, critical, isn't it?
Yeah. And obviously I've had experience of that as a preacher, and then as a teacher, and now within the PSA as a speaker. And and working with authors where it's all about the words.
Yeah, all about the words. So Richard, tell us about the Y-fronts in Perth and fist fights in Calvary. Not what you expect of a priest, really. And then to the world of business.
I mean, looking back in my time as a Catholic priest, I was a kind of strange one. I wasn't a regular parish priest. I travelled the country, working in different communities and running special events. And part of that, I would usually try and visit a huge number of the houses, the homes of the people in the parish, and you just never, ever knew what was coming next. And so in Perth, when I was doing a piece of work up there, a mission, I went into one estate, and you kind of knew you were entering at the interesting zone when all of the doors were steel plate cupboards. And I remember knocking this door, and it sounded like the dogs from The Omen, I think it is, were behind the door. And it turned out there were a pack of about 6 Rottweilers, which when the door eventually opened, there was a man in his Y-fronts and these 6 dogs snarling to jump up at me. And it just, the vibe was instant. I knew what was going on there. So I just said, you're not Catholics yourself then, are you? And they went, no, I'm not interested. And thankfully, the dogs never got out. But so that's my Y-front encounter in Perth.
And what about the fist fights in Calvary?
That one, I think, was one of the most shocking moments of my life, because I was out with a group of pilgrims to Israel, to the Holy Land and Palestine, and I was in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is where supposedly the site of the crucifixion is. And if you don't know anything about the Christian churches, they don't always go on very well, and that church exemplifies it, because the different sects or groups have their own part of the church, and you mustn't cross. So I was in one part of the church praying with our small group, and literally a Russian Orthodox priest, massive big hat, the whole thing was about 3 times the size of me, just came over. And I'm there in clerics, as I was in those days, not red and white, black, white those days. And he just came over and started to thump me. So one of the few times in my life I have been speechless. There was nothing to say. So bizarre.
Bizarre. Yeah. But great story. I'm sure you've got so many stories that are unique. Well, you're going to have, we've all got stories unique, but yours are quite colourful.
I think everybody has stories, though, that when they take time to look back and understand that you don't know what's happening at the time, it's the meaning comes much later. But everyone has stories and experiences that can change other people and impact them. I think maybe mine look a bit more dramatic sometimes, but sometimes the more dramatic stories can be a little bit removed from most people. So sometimes the most powerful moments are the ordinary ones and not the big drama ones.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really been in touch with those little nuances and details, isn't it? That they're the things that make it real, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think you can't paint the whole picture, because then people get bored, but just giving enough frame in a story, that's what draws people in, because that's what they connect with, and then they fill it out, the rest of it themselves, and then it becomes their own story rather than just you talking about yourself. So,
So you say passive income and overnight success are the toxic myths that sabotage businesses. Why do you say that? What do you mean?
I do like a strong statement sometimes.
Bit of a drama queen, eh?
Well, just a little, but I think in your area of expertise, Janice, in sales and customer experience, you know there are no shortcuts. You know it takes time to develop the skill and the talents to build relationships and to manage people and to manage that journey. As an author, as a publisher now, I know that you can't knock a brilliant book out in 7 days or 30 days. There is a piece of work to be done. And yet everybody wants a quick fix solution. And it's an incredibly seductive sell. Oh, knock out your online program or throw out your book and you'll become a passive income generator. But just think about it for a minute. All those people who sell passive income programs are working incredibly hard to get you to buy their program. They're blogging, they're vlogging, they're speaking at events. It's a myth. It's a highly attractive one, but it's not real. The time might be leveraged and multiplied. That's a very different thing from saying you don't have to work at all and money magically flows in. And that goes for the same with overnight success as well. Most people that I know that have had a moment where suddenly the business flips over and becomes incredibly successful and profitable have worked like dogs for years beforehand. And then suddenly it shifts gear. That is not inevitable, but I think that's a more ordinary, normal pattern for business than the fantasy of passive income or overnight success.
I would agree with you. There's one thing that frustrates me the most. I hate this, the millionaire, instant millionaire and all of that you see. And, when I don't go to that many kind of big events where you have multiple speakers, because they're all there just to flog something to you, and they really don't care who you are. They know nothing about your business. It isn't intimate enough. All they want is your credit card. And what saddens me is when I see hordes of people rushing to the back of the room because they're great salespeople, they are great speakers, but it's actually not done for good. It's really just done to fill the bank accounts. And you see it online as well. The greatest overnight success, they don't tell the story of the struggles. They only tell you that, multi-millionaire for 10 minutes. Also in the book publishing as well, where you have bestseller. Well, you may have been a bestseller for 10 minutes on Amazon, but it doesn't mean you're a bestseller, for years and years. You haven't really done the work, but you take the title. And when I launched my book, for a short period of time I reached down to number 2, I think, and all of this stuff, but I never used the bestseller tagline because it just doesn't feel right. It's not authentic to me.
I mean, it's a fascinating one, because I think particularly with the growth of Amazon, there is a way to game that system. But equally, most people don't really understand that. Things like the New York Times bestseller list or the Times bestseller list here in the UK, those systems are broken now because people are essentially buying positions on those lists. So it can be part of a marketing game or a marketing strategy for you. But I just think that if you want a book to be a bestseller, the author has to be the bestseller behind it, getting their message out before anyone buys, but sharing that. But then also get people to buy it and experience the transformation, the results. They will make your book a bestseller by sharing the word, not tricking people by finding some obscure category on Amazon that there's only one other book in. So sorry, you might have.
Oh, you've caught me.
Slightly cynical in there, but
now you say you might have climbed Everest, and I know a few people that have, or sold a unicorn, or overcome daunting odds. But the story you tell your audience, whether it's through a book or whether you're on stage, is about their struggle, their success and challenges in their personal and professional life. Now, they are the treasures that people remember most. Now, in sales, I talk about perspective taking and speaking from your customers' language. And my view is that selling is like creating a speech. Every single word has purpose. So what's your perspective?
Sorry, Janice, I just fritzed for a moment. Can you just give me the first line of what you asked me?
So the you say about the daunting odds that you may go through personally.
Right.
It's more about the experience and it comes back to you talking about transformation and not information. You talk a lot about that. It's more about the experience you give your customers or your audience, and it's about their story, not about your story. It's about their perspective, their language, not yours. So what's your perspective in that?
As someone who used to talk from dawn till dusk, from primary school kids to grannies at the back of the church, all kinds of audiences, and now within the Professional Speaking Association, being exposed to so many brilliant speakers, I do have a massive challenge with a lot of people who are billed as motivational speakers and who have a foundational personal story, because what the experience of that can be really inspiring, but it's so far beyond my context, my experience. Actually, there's not a lot I can do with it. Some, very few actually, successfully join their inspirational stories to my experience and where I can go, but not that many. I think as a speaker, you only have one job, and that is to deliver some kind of transformation for your audience members. Either they feel different, and that's fine. That's sometimes just to entertain, make people feel different. That's great. There's to start thinking differently, make some room for some fresh ideas, or to challenge some really obvious things that need to change in the way that people think. But ultimately, if nothing then happens about how they change their behaviour, what you said is pointless. So I think, don't worry so much about your stories. You know your story. If you're going to tell your story, change it so that it's about the person in the audience, and that they can go on that journey of change that you experience in that mountain. They have to experience it themselves in the room from their perspective, not from yours.
So is that the same when you're putting together a book?
Absolutely. I think, yeah, and I think most books, certainly I'd say in the last 5-10 years, when I've been watching the business book space open up as people can self-publish, and there are lots of different routes, almost every book just delivers data or information. And then a few people think, well, I really need to show stuff about this. I'll use some anecdotes, some stories of where this worked in my business, or where somebody applied it and got good results. And that's useful. But actually, unless you grab the reader at the beginning of your book emotionally with why they should read this book and where they're going to end up at the end of this book, what transformation, what change you're making to them in this book, it's just all data, and it's just all stories about you or somebody else. Until you turn the book around and make it about the reader, it's not going to deliver the results it needs to be a real bestseller and to really change your business.
So is that the difference that you make in supporting experts in writing their book, that it's not just an informational piece of material that you can get in Google and there's an overwhelming amount of that stuff? It's about the transformation. Is that why it's called immersive publishing?
Absolutely. That if someone isn't shaping a book to change the reader's life or business or their results and relationship, whatever the purpose of that book is, why should anyone waste any money? And more importantly, why waste their time on that book? If you're just delivering data, send them to Google. Google delivers data brilliantly, but data doesn't change people. And so I think if you want to make that difference for people, you're going to have to learn how to become a brilliant storyteller, because it's stories that prepare people for change, not data. The story you tell with the data, yes, but data by itself doesn't. So that's what we try and do when we're working with authors who are experts at what they do, but very often experts are brilliant at what they do one-to-one, but they can't communicate that with a broader audience. And then even those who are great speakers and have worked to craft that, there's a whole other layer of skills required to put that down on paper in a way that the reader feels that you're speaking just to them. And that's a really challenging, but for the writer, for the author, a journey that actually takes their understanding of their business and what they do, I think, to a whole new level. And so the author transforms in the process, and that's why the readers can enjoy the same experience as well.
Yeah, interesting. So, Richard, you said that the biggest so-called expert, no cynicism there, on the planet, I know you well now. So you can be the biggest so-called expert on the planet, but if the audience can't remember what you said, then you're wasting your time and theirs, more importantly. So, Richard, how do you ensure you are memorable?
there are lots of different ways to do it. You can have gimmicky ways to do it. So you could dress up in a fancy outfit and kind of literally make a fool of yourself. People will remember you, but will they remember you for the right reasons? There are lots of ways you can do that. I think to be remembered for the right reasons, after you've spoken or after you've read your book, whatever it is that people have felt your value. They haven't heard it. They haven't heard about it. They have in the room with you or in the book, they have actually an experience that you know them, you get them, that you kind of almost know them better than they know themselves. So the solution you can bring is genuine and real. And they actually have a real taste of that with you. That's how you'll really be memorable. And I think if you use the same language, the same stories, the same models in business that everyone else is using, you will not be remembered. You can't be a leader without a vision that's distinctive and powerful. So one of the big things we work with authors on with Immersive is actually creating a model or a paradigm that when people go away from your training or your book, when they look at the world outside, they don't think in the old categories. They're using your language, your filter. So, for example, if I can give an example of that, there's a leadership coach, Ben Morton. Now, I don't know Janice, but I meet leadership coaches almost every day, and they're pretty much the same, which I find terribly ironic. And they all sound the same, and they're all saying the same thing. So how do you stand out in the market? You stand out by speaking and teaching about leadership in a way that goes against the norms, that stands out and challenges people to think differently. So Ben's model is a model of victims, villains, and heroes, and you have to position yourself in your own business as a leader. Am I a victim, a villain, or a hero? And then everything you do in business, when your students walk out of the room, they're asking that question. They're not asking about the Six Sigma model or anything else. They're thinking in Ben's language. So that was probably slightly long, but yeah.
It's interesting. There's one thing I'm most proud of with my book, Business Evolution, is people say to me, it's almost like you're in the room with me. You're in my head. So they can actually hear the way that I would say things. And, I'm Business Evolution was my first. And like you, I'm writing another book, Scaling Your Sales. And I really hope I'm able to carry that through, because I think it's really important.
Janice, you've hit on a magical thing that happens in a book in a way that happens more powerfully than any other medium. Way back, maybe 10, 12 years ago, in fact longer than that, I trained in NLP and hypnotherapy at that point. But it's only in the last 3 or 4 years I suddenly had that connecting moment where when you are reading a great book, the author is inside your head, and you are speaking. The author is speaking to you in your own words, in your own voice. It's the most powerful hypnotic state, I think, and that's why the crafting of the book and the words matter. Because I read so many books that shatter the model or destroy the message because it's sloppy. And I mean, I've read your book and remember your P's and the message that you have about really building process to make everything work for you and be so efficient and effective that you can be incredibly personal when you are interacting with your clients. But you've crafted that, and then people begin to think, actually, this is what I believe anyway. That's the magic moment.
Yeah, that's the transformation, when they actually think that this is part of themselves. It's fantastic. You've read my book. Oh, so Richard, tell us more about your exciting book project, Invisible Me. How did it come about, and what do you hope for the project?
Invisible Me has been a real lovely project to work with. We started it in about October, November last year. And like almost everything that we do, it's come from networking, from relationships with people. So through connections with Marie Curie charity, and somebody had been working with this young boy, Tyler Inman, who was 10 at the time, who is incredibly high functioning on the autism scale, diagnosed with Asperger's, and he had been through a horrendous time at school. He had been bereaved from with his gran, and really had a breakdown, and school had kind of accelerated and made all of that worse. And he wanted to write a book. He was on the journey back up, thankfully, which was great. And we were introduced to him. We had a Zoom together, a bit like we are doing on this call today. And at the end of the call, Martin and I turned to each other. He was in Kent, I was in Essex, and Tyler and his mum had gone off, and we just went to each other, it doesn't matter what else we do, we are working with Tyler, because he's got a story and a message of inclusion and difference and the value of difference, and how to really cherish those people who are different, that we were so proud to kind of want to help. And that's came out 3 weeks ago, and it has just been amazing, because it's completely different from our business books, which is we spend most of our time working on. But his message is now out there, and he's flourishing through that experience as well.
It is a brilliant book, and such a lovely project to actually come across. So how did he know about immersive publishing? How did that bit work?
Well, we've got two bits of the business. So immersive is where we work with business experts to help them from first idea right through to the complete book, if you like. But our core publishing company is Empower, and that was a friend, Tony from Marie Curie. She was in one of my business networks, and she met Anne, who worked with Tyler up in the Midlands. And all Anne said was, I'm working with this boy. He has a dream of writing and publishing a book by the time he's 21. Does anybody know anyone? And Tony just shouted, I know two guys. And then it's just kind of happened. And that is how things happen, is with people making those introductions and those conversations, who see where your value is and bring it together. And that I think has been the base for how we do business. But this has been a completely different kind of project, and it's been magic to work on. So.
And that's a good lead in, networks and community and connections, and how it really does power your business and introduce you to things you wouldn't normally come across. And so we can't leave this without talking about a bit more about the Professional Speaking Association and our joint presidency over the last year of PSA South East. So I'm interested to know, what was your aspirations when you started, and has it delivered?
I think for me, what I wanted to do with this last year, or have other people experience, was really just a safe place to grow in your speaking skills and your speaking business, where you do it together, where you're not on your own. Because I think a lot of people in the PSA are almost solopreneurs, or a lot of the speaking stuff is done on their own or off their own bat. And for me, the last year is about bringing people together to grow together in both the business, the confidence about speaking, and thanks to the brilliant speakers that you've organised, Janice, I think that we've built on the foundations that were there before, and that has really progressed this last year, really strong. So yeah, I'm proud of that. Yeah, there's things we could have done better, things I could have done better, but in general, I think that team at PSA South East, the community there, has grown really well, and for that, I am quite pleased with how that's gone.
Yeah, well, I think we should pat ourselves on the back. It's everyone that comes to visit the PSA say what a great atmosphere, great community and network. And I'm really pleased that you're continuing on next year with David Henson. So a lot of what we've started and we've built on from others will continue to progress. So I'm really excited about that. But I'm also excited about the 4th of September. And this is our big all-day event, stand up, speak out, be heard. Now, you and I know that speaking is such a powerful tool to promote your expertise and grow your business. But why is it that this event is not just for speakers, trainers, consultants? When
we planned this, I thought about this, Janice. I think that we wanted a forum or a space where people who've thought about speaking to grow their business would come and get lots of great inspiration and practical advice, but they would know that there are other people like them who want to grow their business through speaking. But also, I think we've kind of broadened it. Even it's how to present your business, and that's speaking and your messaging and your marketing, your branding. But all of that is you speaking to your audience. So we've not just focused on the stage stuff, but every way in which you can speak to your audience. That's what we focused on. I think there is a tremendous team of speakers there, and the messages and the topics that we're all looking at that day are designed for people who want to grow their business. So it's great for PSA members who will get extra stuff. But I think if you're a business owner who wants to take your business to the next level, it's absolutely perfect for you, because it has been designed to cover almost every area of presenting your business effectively and powerfully.
With the idea of growing your business, making connections with your customers. Speaking isn't just from the stage, as you say. There's lots of ways, and it's all about presenting your business. I'm really excited about the day. So it's 4th of September, and I'll put the link below here as well. So Richard, these are quick fire questions. So are you ready?
I think so. Let's find out.
What's the one thing you haven't done yet?
Written the book that I've been working on for the last 2 years.
What are you most passionate about, and why?
Transformation, making a difference, and yeah, that's it.
If you're on a desert island alone, what's the one thing you would take with you?
I'm going to cheat and say the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Well, is that online or is that the book?
No, that would be the 30 however many volumes, which are sitting down there because...
Well, it looks like you were going to be stranded on the island for a long time to be able to go through all of that.
Yeah.
Well done, Richard. It's been an absolute pleasure. You know, like I do love talking to you about your business, because I do think that you've got a unique way of getting people to not just write a book, but write their book, you know, to convey their message. And I know that you've got a model to help people, to bring that out in people so that they can write about it and portray that to others. So thank you so much. I really look forward to hearing your speech on the 4th of September, and I will see you again soon. So thank you.
Thank you, Janice, very much. And thank you very much to everyone who's been on.